until people can feel what is going on, they won't be called to do anything about it. At the root of so much of what's happening, like the separation on this planet, is because we don't feel we belong to the land.
Oh, this land of mine, she adores these wild cries and open eyes. As I turn my heart to the stormy skies and say, I belong. I have always...
Myrid is the creatrix behind Bonnie Medicine, a singer, song weaver, and medicine musician from the Bonnie Isles of Scotland. Myrid's music is deeply rooted in her Celtic heritage and her profound connection to story and place.
These hills make still the softness in me. I'm down on my knees, saying, land, oh, take me till I know in the deepest caverns of my heart that I and the land are one. Yes, we are one. We have always been one.
Through her music, ceremonies, gatherings, and co-creations with the plant and animal teachers, she offers a prayer of freedom, unity, truth, and an invitation to remember, to move into harmony with all beings. Over a year ago, Myrid offered her music to the Rooted Healing podcast, and it quickly became a core songful thread in most episodes. So if you've been listening along for a while, you'll definitely be familiar with her music. And by the way, if you're a musician and you have music you'd love to offer to the podcast, it would be such a joy to receive it. And we've also stitched her music throughout the audio chapters of our year-long course, Deepen Your Roots. So that's been another wonderful collaboration. Then it was so joyful to finally meet Myrid when she attended our ancestral gathering last year. She brought this feisty, vibrant Scottish spirit energy, and I have the fondest memories of crafting together and our Ceilidh dance outside the roundhouse, where Myrid, of course, knew all of the dances and was just so beautifully and boisterously swinging and stomping around. Her passion for ancestral life ways is contagious, and I truly respect her devotion to the songful ancestral path. This episode feels like an honouring of our ongoing collaboration, and it's stitched together with Myrid's songs from her latest EP, Belonging, which is obviously very on topic for this podcast. And it's only just been released, this EP, about a week ago, along with one song also stitched in from her last EP, Wide Open. And at the end, Myrid refers to Bandcamp and her upcoming wilderness immersion in the Highlands of Scotland in May, which will all be linked in the show notes. To accompany this episode, our Patreon community can receive free digital downloads of both of Myrid's albums, along with another monthly meditation from me and all the existing archive of what we're calling perennial resources. So if you've been listening along for a while and you're enjoying the show, please do consider joining the Patreon community. And also thank you so much if you already have. We have also, on the topic of giving, just launched a giving page on Rooted Healing, where you can now make one-off donations towards all kinds of things that we're working on, whether it's the bursary scheme or sponsoring the podcast or a few other things. If you head there, you'll see everything. And so if becoming a subscriber through Patreon feels like too much of a commitment, then maybe just putting a few coins in the hat would be wonderful that way as well. And yeah, we're also crowdfunding to help us put some very tangible roots in the earth a major life update is that my partner and I have found an egalitarian community in Kerno, Cornwall, which is essentially a beautiful regenerative initiative. It's a co-housing working farm. And gosh, there's so much I would love to tell you, because it's just been such a deep prayer of mine to find a life way that aligns with the gatherings we're hosting and all the work we're weaving to really land back into community every time and really be living the change that I feel we all are so deeply craving and feeding into. And so maybe I will weave an episode just to talk about that. That would be really nice. So yeah, head to rootedhealing.org/give just to see that whole new branch of our website. So thank you very much for listening along. I hope you enjoy this hour together with Myrid, who's also known as Bonnie Medicine.
We are one, we are one, we are one. We belong, we belong, we belong to the mother, to each other. We are lovers in this together.
A land that's shaped me, well, yeah, having been very nomadic throughout my life, there's so many lands that have shaped me and so many different landscapes, but I feel the one that really runs through my bones, the wild coast of Scotland and the wildness of the sea. I spent a lot of my childhood on Iona, and these lands really shaped me. The mysticism there on the west coast of Scotland, the land meets the sea, this veil that's so thin and has so much folklore infused into it, especially the Selkie I feel so connected to.
Wild and free, this body, Selkie, returning to the sea, she is soft and strong. And like the shifting tides, her belly grows in and out and in. I begin to see it is radical to love her. Pure beauty, barefoot and free, woman upon the earth, that only mirrors the mountains.
Calling in the wild Atlantic Sea and all of her wildness and all of her strength and also her softness, and a being that I would like to call in the beech tree. Those trees, I think, were some of my closest companions when I was going through a really intense childhood.
Yeah, so I'm hearing this just innate feral nature in you. And I think of that beautiful film, Wolf Walkers, and the little girl with her red curly hair and her wildness, who I just felt was you. I'm sure, like all of us, you've been on a journey of probably losing that a little bit and finding it again. And I know that you've come through the path of plant medicines and yoga and a lot of travel. And so what has it been like to reconnect to the British Isles?
Yeah, on my mum's side, mainly Welsh. And on my dad's side, I'm Scottish and Irish. Spending all of that time searching for something, fleeing quite a challenging time as a teenager in Glasgow, really challenging, and went down quite a rough, rocky road of drugs and alcohol. But that first experience actually of hitchhiking around Europe was my first doorway into like, there's more and there's people living in such a different way to what I've been raised to see. Eventually, that freedom led me to my spiritual path, and I found this incredible ashram in New Mexico in the States, Ramdas, that was like, I think, my first taste of also living on the land, because we were milking the cows and most of the food that we were making for everyone was all from the land, from the gardens there. And then eventually going really deep into the Aya path, grandmother ayahuasca, and that lineage is so deeply interwoven with the knowledge of the plants and the wisdom of the earth. And it's an earth-based spirituality. And yeah, I feel like my journey with the plant medicines was really what superpowered my journey with my music. You know, we come and sit with these plant medicines, but it actually would be nothing without the music. It would be nothing without these healing frequencies of sound. And I couldn't be more grateful for all of the teachers and all of the plants and all of the different traditions that have ignited that in me. Coming home, I moved to Wales, I think almost 3 years ago now. My journey in those sacred lands of Cymru, learning bits of Welsh. My granddad used to always teach me little bits of Welsh, and my Auntie Betty, who was full Welsh speaker, and feeling her weaving in through the music and through just being on those lands was so nourishing in this really deep soul way.
Yeah, I love what you said about the music being everything, really, that these entheogens and incredible plant and possibly fungi allies as well, without the healing riverbanks of music and sound, what would happen? What would it be? And I'm curious if you were ever invited to sing in ceremony and if you've got stories from that. Because I know that for me, those first moments of being invited to sing in ceremony with the medicine were mind-blowing. I mean, that for me were seeds of discovering a voice that can flow from the heart or the soul without any of this overculture conditioning of what we should sound like and what notes we should try to reach. But it was suddenly this raw expression from an expanded state that is obviously hard to put into words. It's all very ineffable. Do you have similar tales of finding your voice in such a way?
Yeah, I really feel like Aya taught me to sing. I really deeply feel that, because I think there was always this place I was singing from before, even with kirtan, where it was for someone else. It was to be liked. It was to feel worthy in some way. I feel like singing in ceremony really helped me release all of these ways that I had thought my voice should be, the ways that I thought people would like to hear my voice. I actually went through a couple really deep nights of battling all night with my ego of no one wants me to sing, you suck. Just really seeing this part of myself that has partly sung for the love of singing, and always there was this ever-present, I'm singing because I want to be loved. And I feel like when I started playing, when I was 19, I actually got so hooked on it because it was a way to be seen. This path of ceremonial music has stripped that back for me, and I'm not saying I'm completely free of ego as a musician. Of course it's still there, and of course I still have that part of me that wants people to like my music. It's such an innocent, childlike, please love me, but I feel like it's not ruling me anymore. It's not this driving force.
A particular set of wounding from childhood and whatever else, resulting in that deep need and desire to be loved, to be seen, to validate ourselves in that way. And having pursued the performing arts, it was hugely exaggerated, I feel, in my path. But at the same time, what would art be without the people who've had some kind of pain that propels us into it? I don't know. I mean, obviously, Indigenous societies have songs as their bloodline between spirit, land, praise, grief. It's, the songs hold the village together. But I do feel that in some ways it's those little wounds that sometimes feed into the emergence of something that blooms is still worthy and still something to hold and cherish and accept in ourselves. I'd love to hear you talk about your new EP coming out and this huge theme of belonging. Your music has it's come into my life and just immediately flooded the world of rooted healing. Like I put it on the podcast, I put it in the course, audio chapters, and the lyrics and the synchronicities and just the sounds and the textures have been almost cosmically perfect for everything that we've been sharing. It's almost felt like we commissioned you, to thread and weave these concepts and themes together. So I've been sort of bathing in your music in so many capacities for the past year and a bit more. In so many ways, this just feels like a lovely ceremonial marking moment of that gift that you've given me and you've given Rooted Healing and all the people who've been engaging with these materials and resources. So yeah, talk to me about your EP and also feel free to speak about your other music as well, which is obviously what has been so deeply woven in.
I feel so honored and just kind of blown away at like how much I was like listening to this podcast, and you often say at the end, like, if you're a musician and you would like to gift your music to the podcast, please do. And it took me so long to actually do it because I felt so in awe of everything being offered on this podcast and that worthiness piece. But it's just so wild that like as soon as I did, like it was so embraced. And I do really see, especially that album, the Wide Open album, the prayers, so many prayers for the elements. And so many weavings of the Celtic Isles and connection to land and belonging. And it's just magical. I just love music. It goes so beyond what we could ever plan or what we could ever create from our minds. So thank you for just receiving my music and receiving those prayers and weaving them so artfully also with the course and with the podcast. Since October 7th, 2023, I feel this really big fire in me to sing of peace and healing, not just for ourselves, healing not just so we can manifest abundance or manifest the life that we want to live, like really healing ourselves for the world and for everyone that has so much suffering in their lives. And 4 months or however long it's been has been such a fire under my body to sing for collective healing, sing for social justice, like sing to bring awareness about what even is all this for. If we're not healing ourselves for the collective, what is it for? Like none of us are free until all of us are free. And I truly believe that. And this new EP is a cry for awakening.
So when the time comes to lift up your sword, will you fight with fear or will you bring some love? 'Cause we can end all oppression, genocide and war with our hearts joined together. We will heal it back to the core, 'cause we are warriors all alone, all alive. We are warriors bringing love to all life. Oh, time is now, time is now, time is yours now to stand up, calling you in to this revolution of love.
One of the other songs on the EP is Heartbroken, and it's just this cry for people to open their hearts to what has been going on, specifically in Palestine. But, you know, all of the people suffering from colonization all over the world. And it's such a deep calling in me now to sing about these things. Weaving through it all love and this beautiful frequency of community and unity and connection to the land and belonging. And the EP isn't called Wake Up, it's called Belonging, because I really feel that's at the root of so much of what's happening. Like, the separation on this planet is because we don't feel we belong to the land. This lack of belonging on the planet is really at the core of it all. And I feel to sing about this. I feel to use music, work with music and song and poetry to remind people and to awaken like inspiration in other people about how important it is to care, how important it is to feel, you know, because I feel a lot of people are in this limbo of like grieving, but not knowing what to do, or feeling kind of sad, but not knowing how to grieve, not knowing how to like open their hearts to actually feel it. And I think until people can feel what is going on, they won't be called to do anything about it. You know, they feel so separate to what's going on in Gaza. They feel so separate to what's going on in Africa. They feel so separate to even what's going on 20 miles down the road from them. Like, there's such a deep sense of individuality on this planet. And, you know, we've been so conditioned, this is no one's fault, we've been so conditioned to be so independent and individual beings when we are so connected to everything that's going on. And I think like the rates of depression on this planet is so intertwined with all of the suffering that's going on in other places, and also right on our doorstep.
I am heartbroken, watching these children cry. Are you heartbroken as the bombs fall from the sky? Oh, my tears are falling as the mother, she buries her child. Are your tears falling? In this rubble no evil can hide. In this game no one gets out alive. How fucked up can you be inside to kill these children, precious children? We are heartbroken, but won't throw in a towel just yet. 'Cause when you're heartbroken, the fires of resistance need to be fed. I will not give up on the vision I hold inside of a world in peace. No borders, no orders, no sides. We will free every being inside, holding hands as we make this thing right. We will make it right.
One of the tracks on the EP is Holy Trees, and it's just a reminder that nature and the land has everything that we need to be this voice for change. The land is here for us. Like, the land has seen so much war. We have to be grounded to actually be a voice for change. We have to be inspired in order to make change. And I feel that our nervous systems have to be regulated. Nature is the only thing that can bring me that.
Holy trees, giving me everything I need. I find peace, a sanctuary in this bed of leaves. Holy trees, giving me everything I need. I find peace, a sanctuary in this bed of leaves.
Crack Me Open and the last album, Wide Open, has completely blown my mind with, just how far a message can go.
Crack Me Open, I just immediately think of this really beautiful herb garden. I was in the herb garden and this woman who just moved in was there singing, "Crack me wide open." And I started singing along with her. And it was so sweet because, this song has really touched a lot of people, and like this animate force, it's breathed through a lot of hearts in a moment where people really needed a song to metabolize what has been happening in the world. There's not many healing arts grief songs yet out there, are there?
So crack me wide open, oh break my heart in two, oh crack me wide open, oh break my heart in two. Oh, the depth of my love is only the depth of my pain, I know, and I will not be ashamed of this heart that's on my sleeve. Will I wear it with pride? Oh, I will not stop loving, no, I will not run or hide. I will be true to my heart and I will love again over and over. Yes, I'll feel everything, 'cause that's life, and that's love.
I think music is huge in our movement for social justice. I think it's a huge piece that, just like you say, it can touch the core of our being and actually invoke embodied change.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I love in you, and that I really, I feel it fill my spirit when I'm with you, is your passion for ancestral lifeways on and with the land. How has music been a part of that threading? I'm thinking of music being such a primordial state of being together, but then how do we busy our hands? How do we sing as we spin? And there's something there around just normalizing these ways of being together. And for me, I think a huge thread of this rekindling of belonging that you spoke to so beautifully, that this is the issue of our times, is that people aren't actually feeling that profound belonging with the land and with their community. So maybe talk to me about ancestral lifeways and how music weaves through it all.
What's coming through is such a beautiful memory of being at the Goddess Temple in Ashland, and one of my first trainings there, we had this beautiful session of not even with a drop spindle, but just hand spinning yarn and singing these beautiful songs for the goddess as we were just hand spinning this yarn. Just how much that stuck with me and how deeply I yearned for that after that experience. And the UK is so abundant with sheep, but it's not so much out there. It's actually quite hard to find sheep's wool. And I remember my teacher gifted me this basket of wool and I just stuck my head in it and I just burst out crying. I'd been in the States for like over a year at this point, and the smell of the sheep's wool just exploded my heart, because growing up in Scotland, I feel the sheep, even though they're, you could argue that they're not very ancestral, the sheep, I mean, they only go so far back, and they've been a cause for a lot of our issues with like reforestation and stuff. But yeah, the sheep are this lifeline of how our ancestors would have stayed warm. And working with the sheep's wool, I feel, has been such a beautiful homecoming to craft for me. I've done a little bit of working with hides, and I love crafting with rabbit hide, and yeah, a little bit of basket weaving. But there's something about spinning, which I fully did with the drop spindle for the first time at Ancestral with you, Ronnie. Since then, I've been like, it's evolved into the peg loom. So you don't even have to card the wool with the peg loom. It's literally just the raw wool, and just so therapeutic. Like the lanolin is actually, the lanolin, which for anyone doesn't know, it's the oil that comes off the sheep's wool, is such a soothing ointment. Like it gets into your hands, into your nervous system. It's just a balm for your soul, this lanolin. And I feel there is actually a chemical in it that makes you happy. Vitamin D, yeah, vitamin D.
Yeah.
And starting to work with my hands in this way has been such a homecoming. Like my granny, who passed almost 10 years ago now, she was an avid knitter. My granny would knit all of my little dolls, like these beautiful clothes and like handbags. And when I started working with wool, I just felt her so strong. Yeah, I could cry right now thinking about how deeply I yearned for that connection with a elder my whole childhood. And my gran lived like 5 hours away in Blackpool, and working these ancestral crafts has been this like lifeline to her. From my gran to my mother, so much changed. Like my mom is full like independent woman, doesn't craft, she just works. I'm like stitching that back together, this connection to the old ways, and it's been so healing. But then there's also just such deep love for like the old folk songs, and I'm so grateful to you, Ronnie. You introduced me to the Children's Forest, and I've just binging the Children's Forest ever since you showed me like these really old melodies that I feel come from, they feel ancient to me, but all of these songs are singing for the trees. And, so many of our folk songs, especially in Scotland, like a lot of them are singing about lost husbands to the sea and death and war and battles. There's so many old folk songs about battles, and I feel those are so beautiful, and it's beautiful to keep those alive in some way, the memory of those songs. But what really ignites my heart is singing to the trees in these like really old melodies. It's such a deep experience to bring the music into the craft world, because it's what our ancestors would have been doing, especially the women.
Well, I am now officially a community sheep farmer, so there's an abundance of wool here in the community.
Yay.
And once you are back in Cornwall, I would love for you to show me how to use the peg loom and just to make endless rugs. So it's just, I share, I think, a similar, that Welsh word heraeth, that kind of distant yearning for that belonging that we might not have even touched in this lifetime, but when we interact with wool and we do these old crafts, that it's feeding that yearning somehow. It just feels familiar and it just feels right, and my nervous system is regulated, and singing together. I have this beautiful, I think that's one of my highlights from last year, was sitting in front of the Roundhouse in North Wales with you and some others, Ancestral, just spinning together, singing a spinning song that you taught us all, and telling stories and talking about wearing the land as well. That's the whole piece, isn't it? That we've lost that sense of belonging when we don't wear the land that we inhabit anymore. You planted a really big seed, which was just this need for accessible ancestral Skillshare gatherings here in Britain, because there's a lot happening in the States, but it's only really just, I think, hatching here. There was a beautiful one recently that I saw being offered where, you know, it's accessible, you camp, and everyone has these wonderful things to share. And I love that you're going to be offering some, and who knows, maybe there's some collaboration potential there. But yeah, they're just so needed, these spaces where more and more people can taste the magic and the belonging it brings to sit together and sing and busy our hands and feel so connected to the land in so many different ways. When the songs are about the land, the materials are from the land, and the food is from the land, and our stories are from the land, and suddenly everything's animate again, everything is alive
and has meaning.
Yeah. So you've spoken to this really. I feel like this can be our closing sentiment. What is the role of music at this time? You've spoken to your dreams and hopes with your new EP. And I just think collectively, and I want to bring in the piece of AI here. You know, we have so many mainstream songs that are basically automated, algorithm focused top hits, and this real homogenization of human creativity. And now AI is just going to take this to a whole other level. So what is the role of music when in a ever spiraling modernity that does feel like we're coming to we're in the great unraveling, and it feels like there's potential for a great turning?
I can't imagine a world without artists. Music has been our companion since we could make noises with our bodies. Like from the very beginning of humanity, music has been a community member. I feel that so many people are consuming music and entertainment on a daily basis without understanding what is actually behind it. So many people still want real music, and so many people still crave the old technology of singing together and singing for the land, and, you know, song circles and singing as community ritual. There's more AI, but there's more people craving the art of being together. Music brings people together, it does. And music is just food for the soul. And I think in these times when so much is being stripped, so much soul and culture and personality is being stripped from what forward-facing kind of demonstration of society, you know, this rebellion against that kind of homogenization of everything, like our food and music and our lifestyle. Like, I think music is such an act of rebellion, and just to say, like, hey, we are still human and we are alive and we are so unique and each and every one of us matter. And I think the sheer vastness of how much music is still being created and how many musicians are still out there making music, like, just speaks to how much life there is and how much creativity there is still in the collective. Whether we're speaking of love, whether we're speaking of the earth, whether we're speaking of heartbreak and all of the trials and tribulations of life, whether we're singing of joy, whether we're singing of culture, like this, the heart of music is just the expression of the soul.
Yeah, and there's one more little thread actually, because medicine music has been so, well, it's arisen from Latin America and from the plant medicine movement. And there's, you know, when we go to medicine festival, a lot of the music around the fire will be in Spanish, even though often all of the musicians are actually British. This has been the origin of medicine music. And actually, I find sat around that kind of experience, you know, we're listening to, I guess, some of the most well-known medicine music artists currently. I have a yearning for more music that belongs to me, that belongs to the land I inhabit. This, I think, is very fresh, and this is emerging, and you're very much a part of that. And there's a few people who sort of going, oh, yeah, you know, medicine music doesn't have to be completely rooted to these ceremonial practices in the Spanish language. They can be right here, you know, just like the amount of medicines we have in our hedgerows right beneath our noses.
Yeah, I really resonate with everything you shared there. It's I've felt the pressure within myself to like write more songs in Spanish and to like be more medicine musician. And even the women I used to work with in ceremony used to ask me to sing more covers and sing more Spanish songs. I think people really love songs and they're craving to hear songs from these lands that, as I said, aren't about battles and grief, although I love singing about grief. I think the songs of these lands, even a seed within my own songwriting, like one of my deep desires for learning more Welsh is to actually sing more in this ancient language. You know, I always think about Robin Wall Kimmerer in Braiding Sweetgrass, the way she talks about how different it is to speak to the plants and the animals and the rocks and the land in the language that it knows, you know, not just in the last 200 years, but in the last thousands of years, the language that actually those plants have been being spoken to in a very sacred way. And I feel Welsh is one of the oldest languages in the world, is such a beautiful, deep, sacred way of speaking to the land. Even if we're not in Wales, all of the Celtic languages were similar in ways to Welsh, but Welsh has been the one that the Welsh people have really held on to. And it's a very accessible language to learn. If you live in Wales, you can actually study Welsh for free. The Welsh people have been very adamant that the Welsh language will not die. I feel so strongly that the world needs to hear more medicine music in these ancient languages of the Celtic Isles and of old Europe. And there's a few really amazing people really holding that pillar of like the songs of Mother Europe and the songs of our culture as white indigenous people of the northern lands. Like we have our whole own medicine culture that is just waiting to be reignited. It's there. There are people that are really holding that. And it's been such a deep mission of mine in the last couple of years to find these people and to sing these songs and just to start pulling on the threads of like what it actually means to be Indigenous to the Celtic Isles. And this like re-indigenization of white people, I think, will really heal so much of what's going on the planet for us to really embody and own. Like, yes, we are white and yes, we have been oppressors, but we are also Indigenous and we belong somewhere. We don't have to take anything of anyone else's anymore. And we can be inspired by, this is so beautiful, the cross-pollination that's happened all over the world through so many different cultures. But for us to be rooted in our own indigeneity as white people of the British Isles, I feel is so important in these times when we're trying to decolonize so much of the planet. I want to do that with my music and feel so inspired by those who are also doing that and really want to see so much more of it. And so if you're sitting listening to this and you feel calling to that, I really encourage you to seek out these songs and these craft teachers and these ancestral lifeways. I love the way Ronnie puts that, these ancestral lifeways that will bring us home to these lands that need so much love right now, our hearts that need so much love.
Well, when you're here, are you going to be learning Welsh or Cornish? That's the question.
Yeah, for sure. I feel they're so similar. If I can somehow consecutively learn them both, but I feel learning Welsh would be such a gateway into learning Cornish. But if we can find someone to teach us Cornish, let's do it.
Yeah, well, Seth has been starting to learn Cornish.
Wow.
And so there's definitely a pulse. It is very similar from what small amount I've heard. There's more Welsh words than new words, actually, just from what I've heard. But with this lovely kind of pirate accent with the R's, you know.
Yeah.
Well, this has been so nourishing. And inspiring, and I just love listening to your music. I can't wait to stitch it into this conversation. So guide people towards your magic and medicine. What's your EP, any other threads that you want to let people know about?
Yeah, I'm really guiding people who feel really called to support independent musicians to donate for the music. We were talking about overconsumption and just taking all of this like mass production of music for granted. And yeah, I'm just really asking people that resonate with my music if they feel to donate on Bandcamp. It massively helps. We receive so little from platforms like YouTube and Spotify. And so if you feel called and you'd like to give something back, like please find my music on Bandcamp. It's a really beautiful way to give back. And then in the spring, our dear friend Lucy and I and my other friend May are leading a group of women into the Scottish Highlands, and we're going to have a whole 4 days of crafting by the fire, singing, sharing. We're going to hike in with all of our stuff, and so we're going to be very remote and really with the land, and we're going to have so much really deep time with the land and with these ancestral ways of living with the fire. Head to my website, bonniemedicine.co.uk, or my Instagram, bonniemedicine, is a great way to get in touch too. So thank you for receiving these prayers.
Head to rootedhealing.org to explore our in-person ceremonial gatherings, online courses and workshops, all tending, healing and connecting our inner and outer landscapes. With gratitude, your host, Veronica Stanwell. Thanks for listening.
As the night owl calls, I will fall into the arms of the mother. She is holding us together, and she says we are one, we are one. We belong, we belong, we belong to the mother, to each other.